Hello friends, in this project I'm going to show you how to repaint this Imaginext Jurassic Park Camp Cretaceous T-Rex. I'm going to paint him the same colors as Chomper from The Land Before Time. Once he's out of the package, we can see that he has big areas that aren't filled in with plastic at all for some reason. You can leave these areas alone if you want, but I'm going to fill mine in to make him look whole. To do that, I'm going to use aluminum foil to bulk up the empty spaces. By crumpling it up and mashing it into the big holes, we can use less material to fix it, and the final product will be lighter. I put foil everywhere there are big empty holes. When he's all filled up, I take some air dry clay and fill it in anywhere that I put foil, like the arms here. The air dry clay that I use here is Paper Clay Delight, which is very easy to work with and dry so that you can sand it smooth. Now that the spaces are filled in and the clay is hard, you can go in with large grain sandpaper to peel away all the parts of it that got on the toy that you don't want there. I was experimenting and wanted to cut out a hole in the back of his head to see what the eyes look like from the inside, because they're a different piece of plastic than the body of him. I used a tool to open him up, and we can see the plastic of the eyes anchored into the head, and the light can go through them. I can't remove the eyes myself right now, but I can scrape away some of the paint on them with a metal tool to give them a neat texture. And after I scrape away that factory paint, I carefully painted in the pupils, and then I'm going to come in with an accent color that will complement the orange that the eyes are now. I had some problems using acetone to remove paint from the eyes later on, so be careful if you want to fully repaint the eyes. Here he is with his eyes fully modified. I use hot glue to replace the piece of plastic that I cut away earlier, and I'm going to cover it up with some more clay to blend it back in with the rest of the head. I use water to smooth it and tools to blend it in and carve in some texture on the clay. After it's dried, I mask off his eyes so that they won't get paint on them. I carefully use an X-Acto blade to cut the tape precisely around the eye sockets. It's been a couple of days since I filled in the first bit of clay on him, but it's still soft enough to carve in some details to make it look like the dinosaur skin on the rest of him. Because the outside of the clay is completely dry, the lines that I carved in won't be stark and have that weird corner that you get when you carve them in on wet clay. So that's a method that you can use to add detail to pieces that you've started on. As far as I was concerned with it, he was ready to paint. I wanted to show you both the dry brush and wash over with paint, so I painted his underside darker than his back. The dark paint should show through by the end to give us nice definition and detail on the color, and the light paint should come out between the deeper details in the texture of the plastic. You'll see why I said should and not will soon. They say those who can't do, teach, and I can definitely attest to that. It happens so often with me, so expect that in basically anything that I do. If you're gonna recreate this one, I would definitely try to do some sanding on the body first, because the paints really just didn't want to stick to it. It kept chipping off during the process of the whole thing, and that's definitely not something that you want to deal with. Okay, it's working. Hello? Beep, 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 beep. Seems like it's working. Here I'm shading in the big divisions on his belly and also painting his nails for some reason. I mixed up the color that I want to use for the dark wash to be, and I'm going to mix it in with some water. You don't want this mixture to be too thin or too thick at all, but you need to take how your paint acts into consideration. If it's a thinner paint, you don't need to add as much water, you know, that kind of thing. I'm using water-based acrylics here. This is what I use for all of my projects, so mixing it with water is not going to harm the paint at all or the way that it comes out. I don't use oil paints like at all for anything, but I've heard that you're able to do washes with oil paints. I haven't tried it, so if you want to experiment, that's your thing, I guess. Before I actually do the wash, I'm going to mask up all along his belly. I'm cutting darts where it needs to go around curves and things. I'm doing this so that the wash doesn't pool up while it's drying off of the body. Definitely protect your surface before you do washes because it's guaranteed to get messy. The clay part of his leg fell off, so I'm just gonna do that separately. To wash with paint, we just lay on the watery paint with a soft brush and let it drip down into all of the nooks and crannies and the grooves and crevices and the details that the piece has. This is how the first layer came out, and I wasn't too happy with it, so I go in with a modified version of the paint, and I actually don't like the way that the color came out, so I'm going to adjust it before we go any further. The idea behind paint washing is to have the watery paint color only the deeper details in the piece while leaving the main color to come out on the raised details. To do that, you usually have to wipe away the excess paint from the piece. So just make sure to have plenty of paper towels nearby. Here's how that last coat came out, which was darker than I was hoping because I did it wrong. Shocking. And here we are. This is the reason that we put this masking tape on, because it pooled while it was dry. And we take it off and see that it didn't work at all, because I'm bad at this. And we're dry brushing it anyway. To do that, we put only a tiny bit of paint on the brush and wipe off the excess before lightly brushing over the raised details on the piece. This technique works better with harder bristled brushes because you're basically reverse sweeping, but with paint, if that makes sense. I lightened the color and repeated this 2 times and sealed it, and I'm going to actually dry brush the top part as well. It's okay to go over your projects even with different techniques. Remember that it's the product that you want to come out nice, and the way that you get there doesn't matter as much. It's great to try new things, but don't be disappointed if they don't give you the results you want on the first try. Like, seriously. Another couple dry brush layers and we can move on to painting his nails again. I'm gluing his legs back on, but you need to be more careful with hot glue than I am because, ouch! And here we are. I masked off his belly and filled in the gaps on his legs, and I'm going to repaint him because it was flaking off. So you can see the layers of color that we use with the acrylic paint. This plastic just doesn't want to take paint on it. So sand it if you're thinking to try it again. Of course, that's something that I didn't do, and at this point I was very frustrated with this project, so I think I was just painting him regularly. Without any washes or dry brushing. I faded in that little nose there. Works best for me to just paint it regularly. I can't do, so I'm teaching you. I glassed him and we're going to take out the tape on his eyes and chip off some more paint that I fixed off camera. Except I got some on the eyes and it dried and I tried to use acetone to get it off, but it just made the plastic foggy and I was upset and I needed to decide if I was going to sand them to be smooth. But I had a crisis about putting clear coat nail polish on them, but that actually worked. But it didn't on his nails because they chipped off and I had to repaint them and I overpainted and I had to fix that. This project was a mess.